Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're working on the campsite area for my cottagecore flower festival island called Sycamore, which I've made super natural and used a lot of DIY recipes to just make this area fit back into the natural looking landscape I'm going for on this island. My campsite area turned out super cute and I loved how it looked in the end, so I thought I would share the build with you guys to take inspiration from if you're looking for some more natural builds to try on your Animal Crossing island. If you don't know who I am, hi, my name is Twilight. I'm a cozy gaming content creator who is slightly obsessed with all things Animal Crossing. I make videos on tips and tricks, speed builds, villager hunts, and Animal Crossing news and rumours. If that's your vibe and you want to share in the Animal Crossing fun, don't forget to subscribe to be notified of more speed builds in the future, and let me know in the comments below what your favourite type of build is to make in Animal Crossing. For this island, I'm trying to get all of my builds to fit into a more natural vibe. As mentioned earlier, this is my Flower Festival island. It's themed after a festival we have in the UK called Britain in Bloom, and I want it to look more like some of the places I grew up in and around in the British countryside. So in order to make that vision come to life, I'm trying to find some more woodsy and handcrafted items to fit into the overall vibes I want for this island. So I'm using a lot of trees and flowers and bushes, but also incorporating different stone and dirt pathing from custom codes to make this island come together perfectly. What I was aiming for with this campsite was to have somewhere which looked more like a holiday destination than anything else. Although campsites are something that you can find in the countryside in the UK, they aren't typically seen in the small towns and villages that I know and love. So I'm taking some more inspiration here from media than anything else and putting together something which has a small getaway vibe to it, which has everything you need to enjoy a vacation or holiday away from all the stresses of daily life. So I've included a small sitting spot with a couple of items from the log furniture set, which I think are really stunning to look at in this build, and they're some of my favourite items to use in a build if you're looking to create something more rustic looking. So I've added them in just to create the perfect vibe that I want for this part of the island. I was also determined to put down an old-fashioned wash tub somewhere on this island. Don't ask me why I was hung up on this item. I wanted to use it somewhere and I had no idea how I was going to make it fit. And then it hit me that I could put it as part of my campsite area and add in the clothesline DIY recipe item that you can get from Tom Nook as one of the first recipes that you have to make for the 3 numbered plots on your island. Those items along with the small campfire just perfectly set the tone for this small area and make it look super cute. Though I loved how this build came together in the end, I have to admit that this was a bit of a challenge for me to put together. I don't know about anyone else, but I can sometimes struggle with putting builds together. There's something about seeing an empty island or there not being quite as many items down in your build as what other people would put in that can put you off decorating altogether. I was recently reminded of the phrase trust the process, which I think is the perfect way to describe decorating in Animal Crossing. Decorating is a bit like learning to ride a bike. You start off sitting on the bike and looking at the pedals and thin wheels and wonder how on earth you're supposed to make it go. And eventually you get to a point where you start moving forwards, but you then fall off all the time. At that point, you have two choices. You can either say that you can't learn to ride a bike and you give up completely, or you can get back on the bike and keep trying until you can finally stay upright and cycle off into the distance. You have to trust the process when learning to ride a bike and accept that you're going to fall off numerous times until you learn to stay up, and that's exactly what this build was like for me. I didn't want it to be super empty, but I also wanted it to look like it had been decorated. But only having a few items down on the ground started causing me issues during the build because I felt like it wasn't good enough. By trusting the process and slowly moving from one item to another and putting items down to fill in the empty spaces, I actually made something which was more in line with what I was trying to make on the island, and something which is easily accessible and decorated. So the next time you find yourself struggling with a build and wondering how you're going to make it work, I want you to challenge yourself to keep going. Just pick one small area to focus on at any time and ask yourself what you can add in to give it the look you want. Does it need a flower or maybe a bush to add some more nature in? Put a custom code work to allow yourself to have more room to move around. Take each part of the build one step at a time, and sooner or later you'll find that you filled in your build perfectly and make it look stunning and fit back into the vision you have for your island. It was mostly the right hand section of the campsite that you see me working on here that I was struggling with in this build. I knew I wanted to have a tree in the middle, but trying to picture what items would go around it just wasn't working out too well for me. So in the end, I decided to just start with placing a custom code around the tree and then start placing one item at a time until inspiration hit me as to what this part of the island was going to look like. Sometimes you just need to play around with bits and pieces until you can tell what your island is going to become, and then you can work in that vision with the items you're working with. I then decided to make this feel more like a general campsite area and use the kids' tent to add in some additional tents. So I went back into an old decorating trick that I've used before with the kids' tent, which is to place down a custom code blanket first and then put the kids' tent on top. Although I love the kids' tent and it's one of my favourite items to use anywhere in any theme, I don't like that it doesn't have a base to it. So I personally find that the kids' tent fits in better with an island if I put down a custom code blanket underneath it first, so I can make the area look more complete. Granted, you won't see much of the kids' tent because it is behind a tree, but I do like layering items in this way because it adds more depth and dimension into whatever I'm working on for the build. And I really like how it all came together with only a few custom codes in this space and a few extra flowers to make it look more alive. When I got to this point of the build, I realised there wasn't a huge amount of room left to make the build work because of the tree in the middle, and when you're 100% determined to make one core element in your build work, you can always find a way to work around it. So to make this tree fit in but still have enough space to walk around the build and make it look cute and filled in, I added in some extra flowers and filled some of the extra remaining spaces with items like the milk can just to give it a bit more of a cottagecore feel to the build. As we were working on this build on stream, someone in my chat also recommended using a dirt path underneath a green leaf pile to just add an extra final touch, and I absolutely loved this as a suggestion. So I added that down too, and it just makes this area look perfectly finished. I absolutely love how this build turned out, even though it's a super small area to work with and I was worried about how many items I'd be able to fit in and whether or not I'd be able to get to the secret beach and the campsite completely, I somehow managed to make it work. Sometimes working on builds like this can make the biggest world of difference to how you feel about your island, and if you watch this video next, you'll see how one single build can be the difference between finishing an island and giving up on it completely. And I'll see you over there.